Any questions? There's one in the chat. No. I'll read the chat question. Cambodia, she's a question. Chakasamvara. Kotem chokola jibatana chogojave. Yeah, you can ask a question about Chakasamvara. And then yesterday to burn said the Nagas and the animal realm. So I'm wondering about what realm the 8 classes mentioned in practices like the Riwo Sangju are in. 가상 디 로세아 디 둔조 콩도레 숭숭아 네 다 리기에 사라바 디 리wo 상추르바 리wo 상추 디 나라 직성고사라 리wo 상추 디 리wo 상추 나라 리기 라게사라 리기 미지 카렌 지단 리기 데니 리기 디 카레 콘도레 maybe can you be more specific about what you mean with the 8 classes? Because Rinpoche said he's not so familiar with the Riwo Sangju, so just clarify what you mean with the 8 classes here. It was said that we first generate bodhicitta and then realize emptiness. Can it be the other way around, emptiness and then bodhicitta? Then tambong so changcho sen kom go rwa di tela tene tini tongba ni do gore tini tambo tongba ni kom tini tela tene changcho sen tokta tinang shin si yang yorwe
Mondo said that the most said in your Ivan Sena, some Mondo to come not to China Yawa, Kansana, Mondo said Zeta, Majong Samoja, the Chamni, Chancho Sanguina, Mondo to Chakarwa. Tango singing and Gomdan Naja, Tangi, Regua number 1, Chichi, Chitu, Jabani, Shijiba, Toma Poma, Shijiba, and your motorba, the mountain, your motorba, Malape. Of
course, if you can realize emptiness truly first, then of course that's fine. But generally speaking, it's good to actually take the gradual path, starting with the preliminaries. It's good to first have this foundation of renunciation, love, compassion, and bodhicitta, and then practice those main practices. Of course, if you have an exceptionally sharp mind, it's possible that you could just realize emptiness by practicing it first. So there's always a debate about what do we abandon first, the obscurations of the afflictions or the subtle obscurations to seeing the nature of your mind. And generally, we first purify the obscurations of the afflictions. But Milarepa actually said, not me, I do not purify the afflictions first. I first purify the subtle obscurations to the nature of the mind. So it depends on the person. Anybody here or more chat questions? Okay, and more chat question. Let's see. So then in the Chakrasamvara text, there is a mention of various dharmas, such as the preliminary dharma, mundane dharma, transcendental dharma, and there's also a dharma that always stays on the altar. Is there any way to learn about any of this? Or if it is too complicated, what can we mentally emanate? The Demjogin Yamlen Nala, Tini Dorma Tamida Yori, Banangunjo Dorma, Tini Chikdembe Dorma, Tini Chikden Letebe Dorma, Tini Tapa the Chusham Shamba Shamshe Dorma Yoraba Lak Domati
네.
Etani the Kola this Lopchun Chigon Nakandas Lop Koreas Yana this Kalakapuina Tini Yilan Tutukure.
다리까지 가고 또 마소야 도래 걸라.
In terms of complicated, do you mean like making the dormas or understanding that the concept of the dorma offering? Yes, that's question we can come with there. Okay, making it because I'm not in the US to learn. Okay, dorma zoya la ram kain sena korang ari la yo mare tini tapa di lo tuku yo mara. Dorma zoya dis kapo esara tamachaya.
어제 가시다 소토시면 도나. 소토는 지단티 장그래. 또 장나 시ker 와 소토비야. 어제 가시다 람도시면 도나. 다 도마 바푸야도 쿠비다 푸. 근데 다 야면 아세 제 도면 바한도 야면이나 안 되지.
Tamati karam. Geht is chung chung chung.
매 바한도 요라. 도마 바한도 와.
Aber
그래서 야면이나 되지.
aber this Tanya,
야.
so if you somehow can find an opportunity to learn it, it's not so hard. You can learn it. It's good if you would try that. But if it's really impossible, and then you can, for example, use some cookies to offer instead of the dorma, and then the rest just visualize. And also you can use a picture, an image of a dorma.
전에 다다디 로상주나 지나 제도 롱지나 롱지자 사마르 지과 지세 생겐 지과 다다 랑보체 지과 노니 리제 드만 지과 지죠 터서제요 어떤 지과 지 제반도 터서 저는 요선나 롱지세 자요 사마르
I was thinking more about the Rivo Sanctuary question about those M8. So a bunch of things. From what you can remember, it's probably 8 kinds of fear, being protected from 8 kinds of fear. For example, the fear of lions or fear of elephants. That's part of the Tara's application too. So through this practice, one can turn away all kinds of fear. It's probably what it is. Then,
Okay, so I have a question.
Okay.
So we have these 5 Dhyani Buddhas who transform the 5 poisons into the 5 wisdoms. Which one is like where does depression and sadness fit into these 5 afflictive emotions? Because I feel I think that is not among the 5. That's I have like 2 more, but I think that's the first one.
then the nyumonga the yeshenga nengyogu is so lucky yorba
네.
monga nyumon drug lucky yori ina tarong chik yori pena sem kyo chaya yorba pena sem pamya tapat depression yorba tapat sem tupo da von roya yorba gamsen kumsen shira meba kusas chitang chi yori yorba kyo serti tene kind of change on yi shum la with expression and sem nga tene ti nala shira lapke yo marwa yene an koran yan mom tawori tene ti khare khongdori ti nga ti nane ti pene yi shen nga da shina
아고 마송다 다다 샘 쇼음들에서
sem kyo sem magi ba sem magi made ji do katuna sem tukbora mi khashe sem kibo men do katuna kumse khamela chik sem tukpo sem made
누구 세세 지당아도 지금 누구 세로 그냥 지나되는 제가 아콘들이 세트 말을 쓰지 요사 말을 전에 이나 대동세한테 소소소 남포져 있어는 그러와 어제 남포가 있어 소 손도 되는 남포가 되긴 뭐 없다네 네 남포가 다 남포가 돼 이些철새 근데 나 지탄 이些就是나 쳐들어와 어제 남포가 동아세지 남포가肯定都要不什么在当前呢동아세 초대요 말인데 그 매주 뒤나 반년에 치도잖아 저를 내경로
yena yeshen nga nala chik khare lagni ingyogri yo
하고 마송서
yeah, so Ruben says he's not aware of like a kind of a mind of depression or sadness, of like being related to one of the five wisdoms. So you can't really speak on that and can't really say which wisdom it will exactly transform into. But he said that generally, he said, I believe that all happiness and these feelings of happiness and sadness are creations of our own mind, of our own way of thinking. And it's possible that if you really practice and look at the nature of whatever thought there is whatever there is in the mind, is whatever misery there is in the mind. And if you look at it directly and you really look at it, you know, you think about it, actually, there's nothing actually really there. It's just some fabrication in your mind, but it's actually not really there. And that seeing actually is what transforms it into primordial wisdom.
Okay. And the second question is, how are we to understand, the Dharmakaya Buddhas like Mahavairochana or Samantabhadra and I think Vajradhara? How are they completely empty? Then how do they talk to the yogis who start the initial like lineages? How are we to understand? How do they exist? Like, do they interact with the world, or are they completely empty? So just some comments on that, on the nature of these cosmic or the Dharmakaya Buddhas.
그냥 가서 추구 여러 추구 골라림. Bena nga su chuko se nga chamchang nga su ming do go yora bena kundu sangbo yang na do che chang chuko nga su lagi yora ba tini kon su da jik te kam chama chap de yora ba chuko se de chama chap de yora ba da yinan do che chang tini kundu sangbo kon su yang kicha shi ge da bena di lo pala so pa khoran zo gyube la mala shi ge ra bena tamma da wonang chinang ge yora ba tini di tamma den se tini gyube la ma tini ma gyun do go yora ba tini ini ang koranso tongpani tabo 직전 sama chape namkhara tongpani inara tini ko kicha ta khandas shigiro mila teba khandas zogodo tini tama khandas nangedo
물론 들어와 물론 들어와 저 요즘 말봐 노래 장도 문제 토야 요 말봐 물론 들어와 요즘 말해 저 제단데 노래 창선의 쇼크는 저와 미비 통다 거기로 추진이 돼这这趟都你就开始在这边工具是的，这在就是公开可能的这做报红了，
la kare na diski
公开这公办的店呢报红了， 有啥的话呢？这个这咱们中这给钱也需要，这里有没些的嘛？
pera gom gyabala tenne
我们叫公办上的做多少公呢？多少红了？这咱就别想咱个做带路吧，咱他能的，现在带路吧都这朋友节，都这朋友的出去都这强，这就马当马其实多嘛，这没了点那些，俺的兄弟些可以写那么多。
So the Dharmakaya, for example, like Vajradhara, does not directly interact with the humans as a kind of a face-to-face meeting and that a dialogue, not like that. So, for example, Vajradhara, the Dharmakaya, Vajradhara represents the unchanging state of the Dharmakaya, of emptiness. And so the way it is transmitted, so this enlightened mind is transmitted, is often through practice. So through a meditative state, one realizes the enlightened intent, this enlightened mind of the Buddhas, which is the Dharmakaya. Or, for example, there's a story of Tilopa, where we say that he has this lineage from Vajradhara. So how it really happened is Tilopa met Vajrayogini. So he saw Vajrayogini, and then Vajrayogini actually gave him Dharmakaya Vajradhara's enlightened intent. And then that's how it was disseminated in the human world. But it was not that the Vajradhara or someone came and spoke directly to him.
Okay, and the last one is how to understand karma as explained in the various Buddhist understanding of karma. Like, is it just the habit forming tendencies in your mind? So if you're enlightened and let's say you accidentally step on a bug, would that not accumulate bad karma?
这当的的就可多点强噻，这上级军点的，但多出上级军点的，俺就可多点强，是那个了，他多点强的，就当他上级去，他在公法的，天啥的哇，这点呢，这马就的自己，对呢，先把合适的。
Shamba di legume di nangba sangye ba ki legume re gola ki tawa ta korangi kowa rawa ina di pakcha rawa re ram chi kom chawa rawa di le son ro yo rawa pakcha la tene yina yang pena nga hama ko shindo pena tu tini buchung chung la chi kangpa gyabna rawa tina hama ko shindo di pakcha ma rawa di nga komshi ma rawa nga 다른 가양 지카는 군론 가양 요 말아 군론 코노시아 no 다wo 치 가양 하고 요 말아 이는 다른 레송도 그 여러베 박차 메나양
雷说这个雷说雷现在南北上界基本给小马的呢，对于那南北上界都在雷人吧，现在七八就是穷着南北上差多啊，这雷现在苍马身边苍马雷啥都可以，我真的他在我做没些啥忙不在雷啥都可以，过去那没些节目你发现其实哪个来没些
그래
我的没些节目你发现这个的是没些吧，还是就像种就把这这么这有嘛的。先把这年爬上了，就别什么的说那的来爬墙出去是吧？我这这种类似的厂嘛的有的没得，他们行业有嘛的，他这样呢有的别强的，他上街的来照顾嘛了，他这来上的来，比如来就去穷的社区保养东西工钱呢，那就地没给，就地用社区强调是保养的嘛，过去来提那没用过的是，融合的所有呢厂嘛的来提有的是。
이는 레세야 디 컨트리버 디 박차르베
확차 야. 확차在过上的来啥送的，别讲那种的是来个亲戚的提확차这种的，확차是个的，提空送的是那확차是个呢，来厂嘛是확차是，这就有嘛哇。
나 하마 코신도 치 레사나 박차 말아봐
확차 말에 있던데 확차 말에来做的是，那
음
那些节目你发现切的是工钱拿拿出来在哪一个？
Just one more thing about the previous question first. So about the Dharmakaya. So according to the sutras, it is said that the Buddha is our Buddha Shakyamuni. According to the Tantras, it is the Dharmakaya Vajradhara. And so basically what it is the enlightened intent of all the Buddhas that is transmitted. So it's the intent, this enlightened mind that is being transmitted. Then regarding the question about karma, so it's not really just a kind of a Buddhist kind of thing to speak about karma. If it would be just a Buddhist concept, then it would seem that doing something negative would just punish Buddhists, basically. But every sentient being always accumulates karma, everyone, Buddhist and non-Buddhist alike, anyone accumulates karma. And so it's not just the karmic imprints, because as you said, we do many things without knowing it, and that still accumulates karma. In the Gongchik, it is said that the karma accumulated unknowingly, sort of an ignorant karma, is even worse because you cannot even regret it. You don't even know you did it, so you will never regret it. If you know you did it, you can at least regret it and purify it somewhat. And so therefore, karma does not just come from karmic imprints, from these habitual imprints. In the Gongchik also it is said that even a bodhisattva on the 10th bhumi, if they would create a cause, create karma, then even a bodhisattva would fall down from the 10th bhumi. And so they won't, but if they would still experience the results of their actions. And so but in terms of karmic imprints, so as we do things, as we engage in activity, we form karmic imprints. That just means that we grow used to it, and then we have a tendency for doing these things. So it is a tendency for doing certain actions. But any actions, whether there's a tendency for it or not, it's unknown or known, intentional or unintentional, any of our actions accumulates karma.
Yeah.
So when I contemplate samsara, or start to think about what we were discussing yesterday, the length of lives of hell beings and pretas, or thinking about the number of animals in the ocean or under the earth, it feels a little hopeless in terms of when we make dedication prayers and the length of the lifespan for all of these beings and trying to generate bodhicitta. But then when I think about what you just said earlier, the Buddha nature pervades all beings, it feels more hopeful. And so just how to reconcile these two things in practice.
So kasaya tene soro da pe da me nyonyo re tene dundro tene lo tene da sokcha dame da jamcho no la so pape mangbo yorwa tene tin da wasano tana tene tets skanla gore this sem pam da sana da revashara mendo samsare da mano do yorwa ngaso that revashira yo marwa that Sangya, that Deva, that Tunaljoya, the Reva that Sangya, Rakon, so that Androya. Then he, Yina Yang, so that the shape and Nimbo, that Semton Tamcha Chapki or Yan Lapi or then he D Kona Yang, I also just Reva Yorova, so Nimbo Yori, Yina Yang, the Yamen shape a gabla, Tini, this is Gada, our younger Samloni Dira. Chick dedication check when Nimbo Yorova, Nini, the Nick Beb, Mambo Yorodini, Zoya Mepatini, Mondo, your new dog, your Maritini, Kanlagori, Kadati Meva, Kanazogori.
Ganda meva senanda te zo te simjian samman korwa dong tobya zo gale khabo di sirwa. Tina so nyamla chine korwa tar tobya yore. Kansa getsen china ya sanje tobya yore. Sanje ro shore. Da simjian tambi sanje ya zo di sa. Sanje sar goji na le lawo yo ma ra ta te di. Nyama da jeran se lorju na je do jeran se de simjian tambi ta sanje sa goji te ma ko ma top na da nga Lu Tomaton go Sewa go na the K for the Molandaris. Or to the W General say that's some chat on Kana come to do a Mamboji, some chat on the Chi. That's some chat on Kuraton was amazing. Kurat Yamana Didoris. On Yanchar to do Mawochi Tichilitine, General said Tijil, Chun Yamana Hana Yashira Song Samara. The medicine compares to the Jolet, I young summer is something, a contain to Luton Bonke, go to a good cases, and go to a good case on Luton Bon case on that day. Also, Chinam the Chardon Silva or Chaton Sea. Go to a good case on, then go to a good Tigan for an goes over at Judah. Tigan or apartment goes out, then go to check the Chaton Jeton, they also Jeton they are. Or temperature to the lateral thing. This Simjan Kura, not to some Tomba so good, then the Scalica was that is. Nina, that's some not a tango short, and as a Simjan Tempi, Pens and Cheese. Tessie Chancho Sem Jessa or Simjan Mombo, Tiga, not the Chancho Sem Jachimbo Jessa. Techin and around so Kerke, Zenyamachina, the Santia Yores. Simjan Simpi Yabo Chancho Sem Yabo, then Yanachina. So get it, Sandia Yorwa.
And so it is a little bit difficult to liberate all sentient beings from samsara. It's difficult to empty samsara. But if one person practices, that person can become liberated from samsara. Whoever actually practices can become liberated from samsara. First, wanting to bring all sentient beings to enlightenment, this is not an easy task. There was the story about Chenrezig. that was his intention. He said, I will bring all sentient beings to enlightenment. And shall I not accomplish that, may my body split into 1,000 pieces, and may my head split into 9 pieces. And so then with that intention, with this resolve, he then benefited sentient beings, and he manifested limitless forms to benefit each and every sentient being. He did everything he could, and finally at some point realized that nothing is changing. There are still not less sentient beings. The number stayed the same, that nothing really happened, nothing really changed. So then he didn't give up. He did it again. He said, I will not give up. I will liberate them. It must be possible. So then he continued, and still it did not get less. Nothing changed. Nothing helped at all. And so eventually he lost heart, and he thought, it's hopeless. I can't help them. And that is when his body then split into 1,000 pieces, and his head split into 9. And then this is how he became these 1,000 pieces of his body became his 1,000 arms, the 1,000-armed Chenrezig, and the 9 pieces of head became his 9 heads. Then he had his main head, the normal Chenrezig, so that's 10. And on top of that was Amitabha, that's 11. So he became the 11-faced, 1,000-armed Chenrezig. And then he continued benefiting sentient beings. So of course, it is difficult to liberate all sentient beings, but we must have the wish to benefit sentient beings. And if you cultivate bodhicitta and you just continue your own practice, at least you can be liberated from samsara.
我真的说强求sem见谈偏见的sem见盲目偏给的了，说了上街头给的。
So then if you cultivate bodhicitta, you do benefit many sentient beings with that, and you yourself attain enlightenment.
Yeah. Very soon.
How about it? What is Tanya? Not it get this Yeah. In the follow-up on the 8 classes of Gods and Himself. There was this a follow-up question about the 8 what was it, the 8 classes in the Rivo Sangche. Dina Riki or what? Dana ko shamba chi thong song ko dana things can get chune ko me wa cha that the lasin de ki is like a dog lasin de ki mata de ko la lasin de ki or wa tin lasin de ki den so dunro rive yana kare res so these 8 classes of gods and demons, they don't collectively belong to one realm. It's different ones. Some of them may be even gods. Some of them, like Nagas, for example, may be animals. So they belong to different kinds. There's different kinds of beings. Intellectually, I understand the seeing afflictions, the seeing of something's blocking it here, sorry. The seeing of afflictions arising as wisdom, but can you elaborate on this? When a difficult or painful emotion arises, we can see it as having no true nature and not grasp at it. But then what? I'm having a hard time understanding the arising as wisdom and having this become any kind of actual experience. Thank you, Drupan. The ram thing and so when you mon nam do then so tong na ngo the tong na then you la na po mare yi shi the nam do the new mon ba can get it cha some machine It's not very clear. Bena nyomong ba tenzo nyomong ba yishe ngo thona teni yishe to shagi yore la ki yore ba teni bena be nyomong kale kapo chi lepsona kale chembo chi lepsona sorba ram teni thongge yore ram teni hakho ge yore teni korang ngo ma to pare hakho sigi yore ba teni chi china delam singi yo mariang di mazin yin sigi ba the chishna pena mazina rwa mazin zimba mazena mazina kon shargere dinga hako tini ko ngo matupa yang hako tini mazin ram tini kare chego res kainzina ti kale kaporira ti thongwa chamge yishe to shaya dirwa ta morangi nyam ngune nyamnyong yorwa tinra 용구 엄마라봐 누나 예시다 용구 엄마라 임바 하고 그러봐 다른 갈래도 So it's not that something arises, so to speak. It's just that when, for example, an afflictive emotion arises, when a bad feeling arises, you don't become controlled by it, so you don't follow it. And if you do really see that what that feeling is, it almost feels like that's not what it is. It's not what I call it, what I label it to be is not what it actually is. I just call it and that this is this affliction. So when you see that it doesn't exist as that affliction, that I call it that affliction, doesn't exist that way, then this is what we call then it manifests as wisdom. So manifesting as wisdom just doesn't mean that something arises, something different arises, but it just means to really see that the true nature of what arises in your mind. For example, when you get angry, then when you look at that at your mind when you're really angry, and if you can practice, then actually what you find is that there's no anger anywhere to be seen. There's no thing called an anger. Where is it? It's nowhere. It doesn't really exist. So when you realize that, first of all, your mind becomes more relaxed, and because then you know that it's not really actually there. You're fabricating something you're calling it something that's it's that, but it's not what it really is. It doesn't really exist as this feeling of anger. It's nowhere to be found, and this lack of finding it not being really there. Actually, there's nothing really there. That realization is wisdom.
Ningbo to chwali mechuwa, ningbo tole machuwa, mechuba shi chas, ningbo se sempre nero, ta ningbo tingan machuba. Then the shedanda sin tiki gan, machu tigan ne dina, sem nero gan ne dina, machu bas regress. Det är ingen mata shetan har det så där seminar och gamla som det machu bas. Det menar jag inte om. Chagarwa.
In Jigden Sungön's co-emergent unification of Mahamudra, it says, abide within your true nature. It says literally abide within the essence, your essential nature. And within that state, if anger arises, don't alter anything. So sustain an uncontrived, an unaltered state. Don't alter anything. And when you continue to stay within that state, when anger arises, without altering anything, changing anything to it, leaving it as it is, leaving it be, then the anger is said to be experienced as a mirror-like wisdom. I was wondering on turning the Dharma into the Dharma. One should contemplate impermanence and death. Number one, I feel I cannot even sustain much mindfulness. I'm distracted all the time. Sometimes I feel thinking about death and impermanence just makes me more anxious and distracted. Should death contemplation enhance one's mindfulness? Let's do that first. That soon rova golare. Tining and so chiva metakpa gomgoris. Tini chitanga tenchi shira kyong tokumentos. Na katuna semyeng rogodos. Tini nga chiva metakpa gola samlo mambo tangna. Tini nga be this jingna mambo gegetok. Tini jingna tini nan namto mambo like tira tini ang yeng rogore. Tini chiva metak gom serati tenchi la pengire labgidwe kansina korang pengir zamara kong chiba matapu komna teni lapardo namto kigre teni china mambo kigida.
Ore ta chiba mata nga so chenxie lebgre chenxie ji ya be sha da xiang ta nge ma sam yu ring bo din na sam kwang kwang chiba mata qian dong chiba mata qian zo kari kang be chuo kari sa yi ge jia wo de ang ze yin ne xiong na ti gang so chen ba le tu ya ru chen do wa wo chenxie lebgre我真希望没他，他在咱们当地新浪街呢，然后希望没他有了哇，这谁都看得清楚，这新浪就现在这个了哇，这里面第是这两年期间呢，第偏用了秋的了，没他那边俺七元节的人来其实，七元节的人来其，南起前面三三，南起前面三三，那南起看到些节些就嘛嘞，咱们的咱们呢，七元节快过，这都样的样没他七八光，两年期这里前七元节快嘛，穷着过。他们他这现在当俺现在条件都咱有上就像俺说起码真的，你我不讲的有的话嘛，这去那没得了嘛，让俺上嘛。
So the contemplation on death and impermanence is supposed to support your mindfulness. So for example, when we do a long retreat, we have this tradition of writing ourselves little notes. For example, I was writing down remember death and impermanence down different like sticky papers and then stick them all over the wall and everywhere I can see it. And whenever I was distracted, wherever I would look, I would see that and then I remember again and I'm mindful again. Of course, if it makes you scared and anxious to think about death and impermanence, even if you don't want to think about it, it still happens. And then what? So what will you do when it still happens? Then you're totally unprepared. So even if it makes you anxious, it's still more beneficial to do something right now when you can. And if you do something before in preparation, if you do some practice, it's possible that is of some benefit. But if you don't want to think about it, it's not like you will avoid it. It will still happen. Milarepa said that first I ran into the mountains fearing death. And meditating in the mountains, I reflected on when will I die over and over again. And eventually through my practice, I lost all fear of death and attained deathlessness. And so if you feel afraid and if it disturbs your mind to think about impermanence and death, it doesn't change the fact. It will still happen. There's no one who can avoid it. And it happens to all of us.
我等起吧，这是写学呢，等起吧写有了，我这写学对的呢，这娘呢，刚出家是娘呢忙事情，等起边几块，用多少了？
And if you're always conscious of death, then you will be able to do more practice. And through more practice, you may actually have less fear of death. So maybe you get rid of your fear.
啊，这写上这吃饭多哎， 这吃饭是一这碗蛮吃，这最熟悉的要嘛的。
Okay, so please don't submit any more questions. We just finished what we have. And then another thing is I associate renunciation with something bad or very uncomfortable. So I think we just mentioned that so there's a resistance in renunciation that even though I think about Dharma all the time, I understand that renunciation is good, like it leads on to enlightenment, but how can I trick myself into actually comprehending this, enjoying the renunciation? I feel how it is now, I turn Dharma into an obstacle instead of a medicine, just associated with pain and difficulties. Dira di dawore dini nga so nginchong gola ram dini nginchong gola sam tangna dini yang des chaba ma deva chi yang do kte di chi kya po mares chaba chi la kire dini dini chitang ya po res chitang rikpa dana ha ko go yore ram dini tela den sangi gire ha da ko gore nga yena yang chitang towa yang des go go do nginchong kina
好吧呀，
towa kawo ko me to dini di chira lapki yo marwati pe ya pore sangar kiwo yo sare sawati lapki tuna lapki yo mare teni ta korangi nara chö se ti te cham chö samla shana chö nyamlan sia ti kale mangbo yore teni shag yore wa
对对
teni ti parche ti main kandas gyo gore pene chö di yakbo thon yore wa
对，这
sometimes
里
I call to call mambo jagore tini some keyword of to watch shira college chembore samgerera
啊对对，他还不是，啊这刚才进步是啥呢？这去研究最多什么事？哦，研究什么这研究是的主要这样子的那这个，主要其他还得研究啥子，是吧？哦，这研究什么？这你在想马去吃后那个，我研究这我说的拉票的这说话，那这个哪里的？没他吃完呢，在哪里的？在那我说天就你个话，他说呢在哪里的？这样的。 我说吃什么要不当路，他说这就先买起吃红，这提纲了这强你这强调先记，这伢们起托呢，我这每样东西要有这里，但研究什么的，我这他是没有买的是，而且没用的，但研究没有的。
So now you think that renunciation and all of that is difficult and you don't really enjoy the renunciation. And that's actually the point. You're not supposed to enjoy it because renunciation is supposed to generate a feeling of sadness, not a feeling of joy. Because you're thinking about the nature of samsara, and that should not make you feel joyful, but sad. So we're thinking, oh, this is how samsara is, and it's so much suffering, and it's all impermanent, and we all will die, and we have a precious human body. So we're just thinking about the facts of what's actually going on. And then when you think about the facts of how things really are, it is, of course, making you feel sad. But actually, even though it does generate sadness, it is the best medicine for the mind, and it's the best medicine to overcome an obstacle to practice.
哦，现在他的开始当年纪行，我们那里是中多，可是东亚讲说是九万几的秋意，讲九万几没得用，但没那里把说给说了，在可是东亚讲说你没有买的是， 조바제 악추 뭐이 조바제 그냥 좀 용용도 세 저랑 디 조바제 샘 리치 소라제 형나 저랑 다 야고레스
Milarepa, he cried out once and said that there's so much suffering in the ocean of samsara. There's endless suffering, and yet so few feel sad about it. So if you do feel sad about it, then that's actually a good thing.
야 되네 다 요마로
Ja, da ist daran Chidok. When oops, no. Is enlightenment impermanent, permanent, or something else? Sanki is here dit mi takpari yana shembachiri.
다마 다인 데지
La ki
다 아니는 데 사레스
It is beyond permanent and impermanent.
다 되지 되네 다야 당가랑서 차송 되네 제탕 당가서 차생가 된다 거 디시 배창가서 쇼게 야랑도 냠네 디시 토나 다 정보 연구 제 로도나 비서 점도 디스탄 그래 다 참니 이제 창조 센터도 디스고 되네 자제 가서 그래 예담 가래 공평나티 예담 제한테 제스 곰냐고 예담 제한타 가래 나타나라 라기 마로래 봄 되네 자 지간라 샘마초 반 냠바샤나 차자 침보서가 샘마초 반 말에다 라마노 제고 지원노 제랑 지원노 제 라마 제고 되네 이제 소소 자벨라 마트 공데 어떻지 뭐 자벨라 넘바도 진 창도 뭐 나들이 어떻지 되네 그래도 샘마초 바 차자 침보서 샘마초 배만다 첨바 많이 이와 진데 자 냠라 카운터도 티 유전 디스 냠라 치톰나테 야고요레 되네 되네 제는 거 같이 어떤 지금서 쇼핑 가서 냠나 치잖아 소소자 동바래 시간 디스 냠나 치톰나 창조 샘라제 공진 창조 샘자나 송들 니가 냠나 치하서 공패 템포 치료레스 되네 한자 시당도 샘나 지 자나 송데 니가 냠나 치나 내가 싫어요 말해 송도 어떤 상제 좀 된대라 제 토랑 상제레 소데 인디 토랑 야 지시야 나스 나 톰나 데 냠나 디스 치톰나 depende det is 내가 대한다 들을 마음이나 어ත네 아니 맞아 말까 뭐 레라요 말테나 지시스다 니 말이 지시가 나한테 있다 지시스다 니 말이 지시 시간 공부도 저 체크해서 공부나 소소도 디스펜 토그레스
So to summarize, the way we practice the fivefold path of Mahamudra, it's good in every morning when you get up, if you can think about the four thoughts a little bit, cultivate some renunciation, and then cultivate bodhicitta and love for others. And then think about whichever yidam deity is your yidam, for example, Chenrezig. So then you visualize yourself as your yidam, and the yidam appears clearly but does not inherently exist. And then on your crown, think of the guru. Think the guru sits on your crown, appearing as Vajradhara and having the essence of the root guru. And then for the most part of your session, just stay in Mahamudra. Just rest in a natural, uncontrived state, an unaltered state without distraction as long as you can. And in the end, make a dedication. And Jigden Sumgen said it's very beneficial to practice in the morning first thing after getting up, because when you first wake up, he said that your channels are empty, and whatever you bring to mind will then enter those channels in the morning. So if you start your day with a thought of bodhicitta, then bodhicitta will enter into your channels, and that will have a positive influence on you throughout your entire day. On the other hand, if you start your day with being angry, then anger will enter into your channels, and then all day will have a negative influence, and whatever other practices you may do throughout the day will be less effective because you filled your channels already with anger that day. And that's also why it is said that the Buddha himself attained enlightenment in the early morning before sunrise. So if you can try to get up a little bit earlier and practice in the morning, that's a very beneficial time to practice. And this is how you can quickly practice the fivefold path. And I know everyone has a lot of things to do. You're all very busy. It's not easy to find time to practice. You don't need a lot of time, but just try to do something each and every day. For example, if you just do like half an hour every day, it's already very good.
야, 전에 다른 사람이 전에 대상만 투지치 전에 상마 단좀 쇼바리 나선들아 요바리 상마라 되냐면 뭐 유명 등예를 받다 뭐는 요 투지치스
So thank you, everyone who is here at the center, everyone following on Zoom. I hope and pray that your practice will go well.
전에 당가서 뭐 같이 돼 샤땡을 쓸 마동
So let's do dedications and long life prayers.
그래 손야 가레라베 고르베 젠감스 벤다 데바 말르 조메네 데렌 세와 데지 장소예 자비 젠데 바트 덴저제 관조른 첸 손제 모원예 자텐 지바 주베 베카른 장 그 상보 젠제 생제바 안체네 가자 샤덴 쇼 가조 성제 겐바 지바라 마게 완초 제츠 자메야 아토텐 렌젠 드라메 제제 아쇼제 나와 가자 샤덴 쇼 아바베나 아리아 endo kan shosu gaji reisen chong ji tian guang ge zhu xie shu de ba lian ga jian gu xie ba jia xiong ma tu be lo ji ba chu xie an sa ta kan be an re ya te go 아자센 수준은 오보 이제 아겐 보조와 장세 샤벤 소 자, 이미 나로 아니
For this
Oh.
realm, encircled by snow-covered mountains, you are the source of every benefit and bliss without exception. Tenzin Gyatso, you who are one with Avalokiteshvara, may you remain steadfast until samsara's end. Embodiment of the three precious jewels, Padmapani, who holds the teachings of the victorious one, seeing the all-goodness meaning with the wisdom eye. May you who are spontaneously established activities live long for hundreds of kalpas. Noble Manjushri, the Lord of Speech, who manifests to hold the teachings of the Triple Gem, who raised the lamp of the sage's teachings. May you who are the light of Dharma live long for hundreds of kalpas. The one known in the Holy Land as Ayodhya, emanated into the Gar clan of eastern Tibet as Chodingpa, the heart son of Jidon Sengong. May the life of glorious Gachen remain steadfast for 100 years. You who are richly endowed with the glorious wealth of Dharma knowledge, who through reflecting and meditating have actualized the self-aware absolute reality and shine with the 100,000 light rays of the ethical discipline of the Buddha Dharma. May you, Kanchen Ratna Dwaza, live long.
Dorje Chanchen Dele Naru Tai Marba Mela Shuje Gampopa Pamo Chuba Java Trigomba Agayu Nama Namje Rashi Zana De Tamji Saibani Zone Jeda Nache Palo Choba Azebe Zone Yoba Jodwa Cho Changju Senjo Boshi Machi Bana Jejo Jeva Yamba Niva Yang Gong Ne Gong De Pepa So Ala Mai Gong Gan Sama Sova Ne Cho De Gu Se Ma Sova Ne Zhe Ne Da Ge Zorowa De Lama Dan De Ba Xin Je Aja Bara Baro Je Tara Jen Ba Tang Agun De Sambo Jina De Jin De Ate Da Gun Je Ye Se Da Lo Jin Age Wa De Da Dam Ji Ra De Mo Ta San Ge Gu Song Ne De Jen Da Da Ne Joro De De Jen Da Da Age Gu Me Jen Du Be Jen La Je Ache Da Lu Je Ma La Jo Ba
Doje Chan, Tilopa, Naropa, Mapa, Miraropa, Damalot Gampopa, Bamajupa, and Lord Jigompa. Please bestow upon us the most spiritual teachings of all the Kagyu Lamas. By this virtue, may I achieve omniscience. By defeating all enemies, confusion, may all who travel on the way of the birth, old age, sickness, and death cross the ocean of samsara. Bodhicitta, the excellent precious mind. Where is unborn, may it arise. Where is born, may it not decline, but ever increase higher and higher. I pray that the Lama may have good health. I pray that the Lama may have long life. I pray that your Dharma activities spread far and wide. I pray that I may not be separated from you. As Manchushri, the warrior, realized the ultimate state, and as did Samanabhaja, I will follow in their path and fully dedicate all merit for all sentient beings. By the blessings of the Buddha who attained the three kayas, by the blessings of the Buddha of the unchanging Dharma as such, by the blessing of the indivisible Sangha order, may the merit I share bear fruit.
Da dang gun de tam chi je du zom de sa ba dang ayo be ge be za wan de da dang sen chen tam chi nyo de la na me ba re yang da ba do be chan cho che to ba cho che 写家跟随跟前就接接点点你的对望吧人间八戒点八身体吧也着土桑公边里有节。
By the virtues collected in the three times, by myself and all beings in samsara and nirvana, and by the innate root of virtue, may I and all beings quickly attain unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious enlightenment. May the teachings of great Jigompa, Ratan Shri, who is omniscient, Lord of the Dharma, Master for interdependence. Continue and increase through study, practice, contemplation, and meditation until the end of samsara.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chupala.
That was wonderful.
Gracias, Sophie, dilo en favor de todos, por favor. Bueno, pero escríbeselos, por favor. Gracias. Gracias, bye.
Gracias.
Por favor, sí.
Are you sure? Yeah. Okay. Yeah.